received. I believe. Personally, I've come to the path of Chinese medicine in an unusual way. It was never something I planned. I remember that at age 12, the husband of our nanny, who was a poet and philosopher from Poland originally, who then worked in a crack unit of the Israeli army, he was actually the commander of a major operation, and that happened in 1969 when the Israelis would take the U-boats that had been promised to them but then had been blocked. The Israelis just came and in the middle of the night just took them. So that kind of a guy was reading the Tao Te Ching to me and my brother at age 12. We didn't understand a word, but something deeply mystified and fascinated us. And when it came time to go to university, I was always interested in literature. I picked German and comparative literature as my major, and then Chinese as a minor, and philosophy as another minor. That's sort of the German university model at the time in the 1980s, one major and two minors. And you can also have two majors. But after 1 week, I knew that the dealing and studying all things Chinese, that's got to be it. That will be my life path. I was so fascinated by particularly the Chinese characters, and I changed my major to what was at the time called Sinology, the study of all things Chinese, Chinese language, Chinese literature, Chinese history. And I went to China in 1982, was lucky to be one of 30 German students to get the limited government scholarship to go there, 30 Chinese in exchange, come to Germany. And I met my American wife there. We were only 100 foreigners in Shanghai at the time, which was an entirely different city from now, where you have an expat community of 250,000 non-Chinese people living there. So it was a true adventure. And I then received eventually my PhD in Chinese literature at the University of Chicago in 1990. But that was also the year before I was diagnosed with cancer as a young man, age 28, completely shocking for me as a young man. And I already had a very good job at a prestigious East Coast university offered to me to become an assistant professor of Chinese literature. I declined that at the time to take time out, but to study the medicine specifically that I felt was helping me at the time, which was acupuncture, Chinese herbs, and I wanted to learn more about Qigong. That was the main purpose going back to China in 1990 the second time. And I soon found the teacher in Qigong. That was the Professor Wang Qingyu, who was and still is at age 87 nowadays the lineage holder of the Jin Jin Gong practice. And I studied with him for 2 years while I was also studying. Had the luck, extremely good luck, to still be able to study one-on-one with the major professors and wisdom keepers within the universities. Those are huge universities in China of Chinese medicine of 30,000 students. So they are as big as our Western medicine universities here are. And returned full of that knowledge and full of enthusiasm and excitement. And of course, the joy of having knowledge that was very interesting to me, just like the philosophy and the literature I had studied before, but that was not ivory tower material. That was something that I could use, not just for my own palpable health benefit. I really felt like this was saving my life, but that I can use it for other people and put this knowledge to use and feel like all of that time I put into this knowledge is doing something positive for the world. And that was and still is deeply satisfying, so that after 40 years of doing that, I'm still, or 30 some years, I'm still pinching myself in the morning about the good luck of having contracted cancer as a young person, because otherwise my life path would have been different. So I always believe that way, that there are no coincidences, and that behind every negative thing that we don't like is usually a deeper opportunity there. When I returned, I had the good fortune of being given the opportunity in 92, but then formalizing that in 1995 to establish the College of Classical Chinese Medicine within National University of Natural Medicine, where I still work and enjoy transmitting this knowledge to my students today.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Laurie Regan. From 2005 until 2020, I was the Dean of the College of Classical Chinese Medicine. And I've been asked to talk to you about that, like how I ended up in that position and my relationship to the medicine. And first, I'd like to say that I'm actually not an LAC. I'm not a licensed acupuncturist. My journey is a long one. I'll give you little bits of it. I went to college interested in animal behavior, and then got interested in the physiological foundation for that. Really, animal behavior I was interested in order to understand human nature. I thought the more we understood about, in particular, mammalian communities, we would understand more about human behavior and human nature. But I got to a point of realizing the limitation in taking a biological, physiological approach, and became much more interested in having a holistic approach to understanding human nature. Anyway, I did get a PhD in neuroscience and worked for a couple years for the Division on Addictions at Harvard Medical School, especially setting up a program there that was looking at how to treat addiction and teach people about how drugs work in the brain. Did a collaboration with the Museum of Science in Boston. But while I was in graduate school and while I was doing that project, I had been reading more and more and more about natural medicine and became very interested in it. Interested in this way of understanding health and healing in a way that wasn't solely focused on what was broken and treating the body as if it's a machine that can break down, but rather a whole system, a whole body, mind, spirit medicine. It made so much more sense to me. So I have to skip a few parts of this journey here to not make that part too long. But I ended up coming to the National College of, then National College of Natural Medicine. Actually, at that point, it was the National College of Naturopathic Medicine, to do naturopathic medicine. And I specialized in homeopathy, constitutional homeopathy in particular. It was interesting to apply my science background there in a realm that had much more breadth and depth, had just as much depth I found in the science, in the physiology, the anatomy, and the biochemistry, but placing that into a much bigger perspective, a much more holistic understanding. Because medicine in this country, even though that's changing somewhat, even in the more conventional world, medicine still is primarily focused on treating what's broken and seeing the body, treating it as if it is a mechanical entity that we can intervene in and fix the parts that are broken, as opposed to this much more, to me, accurate and satisfying, much more accurate and satisfying understanding of when a person gets disease, what's the meaning in that? What's the value in that? And how do we actually truly get to the root of the disease and bring them back into a state of harmony and wholeness? So once I graduated from NCNM, then I continued to do study in constitutional homeopathy at the Hahnemann College down in California. I also did study at the Jaffe Institute of Spiritual and Medical Healing while I was doing private practice. And in 2004, actually, I'm going to back up a little bit. When I was a student in my third year, we got a new academic dean who said, we can start a Chinese medicine program at the school. There had been an intention for that for quite a long time. Satya Ambrose and Eric Stevens started OCOM, the Oregon College of Oriental Medicine, while they were students at NCNM, but they had moved down the street. And so NCNM then was without the Chinese medicine, and they hired Dr. Heiner Fruehauf to come start a new program of Chinese medicine. So in my second year of naturopathic school, that was part of the curriculum. We had a whole year of Chinese medicine classes that were incorporated into our naturopathic curriculum. And I loved it. And I had the intention, along with some of my classmates, in fact, I did start when we got a new provost, a new academic dean in the beginning of my third year, as I started saying that person did the work to get the accreditation process rolling. And so 2 weeks into the quarter, we started Chinese medicine classes. And that was lovely. It was wonderful. But I was living in a meditation center. I was teaching at the college based in my experience. I had been teaching in what's called the New Pathways program at Harvard Medical School, which is it's, evolved even further from what it was then, but very case-based way of learning. And I've been implementing that kind of learning into the coursework at NCNM. And I was still working there. So with that work and with the meditation center and my everything going on, I didn't have the time to add a new program. So I didn't do Chinese medicine as part of my program. I just did I just stayed in the naturopathic program. But I always kind of checked in with it. And I kept doing the Qigong part of the program. That was something we did in my second year, and I just wanted to continue it just for me to keep me healthy as I was going through the program. And so I kept doing that. And after my third year, I went on a trip with the Heron Institute. Heiner and his wife Sharon formed the Heron Institute and brought groups of people over to mainland China to have a more traditional experience of education in the medicine there. In particular, we studied Qigong with Professor Wang Qingyu, who is the emeritus director of the Sichuan Taoist Society and the lineage holder of the Jinjinggong School of Qigong. He's one of the recognized experts of Taoist medicine and of nourishing life practices. And it was an incredible blessing to be able to study with him there. He's a major mentor and colleague now of Heiner's, and I've been studying with Shifu Wang since first he came here in 1995. Is that right? And then I went to China that next summer, and this summer will make my 11th trip, I think, to China. Going again in another couple months with the Heron Institute to study again with Shifu in China.
Hi, my name is Andy McIntyre. I am the Dean of the College of Classical Chinese Medicine at the National University of Natural Medicine. I got into Chinese medicine and acupuncture after my undergraduate studies in comparative religion at Harvard. I graduated in the late 80s, and I was exposed to the idea of energies and alternative energies and what they meant as far as what a human being was. That captivated me, and so I looked into some programs that would be studying that directly. And at the time, there were none extant. And someone suggested at the time as well that I look into acupuncture, because acupuncture dealt with energies and all these things. And I thought, well, great, that sounds like an interesting course. And so I pursued that, and I matriculated at Bastille University in 1991. And I had intended to do research into this idea of bioenergies at the time. But as commonly happens in life, life has a way of dictating its own course. And after having graduated, I did not do any research. I've never done research, and instead went into private practice and started teaching in 1998 back at Bastille. I realized at the time, going some years through it, that I had some questions about how Chinese medicine viewed the body, and some of how things like point locations were considered or determined originally. And I realized that I probably had something to say about that, and so went on a project of my own in terms of determining through looking at bodies and how points were located along various joint cavities, crevices, body topographies, that this could be identified and actually could be tied to the system that we normally learn in Chinese medicine of point location. And that actually sort of drove a lot of my own passions as far as what I ultimately taught. I arrived at NUNM in 2016 as the Associate Dean of Clinical Education and became the Program Dean in 2020. I currently teach several classes here, including acupuncture anatomy, which is something that ties back to some of my own passions. And I also teach auricular acupuncture, and I supervise some clinic shifts. I teach one doctoral class here called Healthcare Landscapes, which talks about how the acupuncture and Chinese medicine profession fits into the larger national healthcare landscape, and really what is going on behind our program, our profession, at a national and legislative level.
I started when I was 8. This is our family tradition to learn some martial art. Yep. And I grew up with 2 Southern-trained Mantis masters in Hong Kong. And one of my teachers told me when I get around teenage, he told me to learn Tai Chi. And he teach Tai Chi in the commune during 50, under the communist regime in China. And that's the only thing they were allowed to practice. So he teach Tai Chi in the commune. And he's a medical man. He's on Dita. He's like a sport medicine killer. So he told me to learn Tai Chi because he's a master in Tai Chi himself. So I started explore Tai Chi and find out from Tai Chi school, many families, and get into another one, and see what are the differences and what are the similarities, what made them call all Tai Chi then, right? And then I explore some Xingyi school. I look back to the history like archaeological finding. During that time, Xingyi Padua are very popular in Beijing area, 3 big schools. Of course, there's others. Like in the imperial court, there's some great master They have different names for the school, but they're all practicing the yin and yang. How you use it with the body, with all the spectrum of yin and yang, how we interchange and integrate. So there's a lot of similarity. That's why when the old master, when they get to that level, they usually become friends or rivalry for the interest of the school. Those who really open their heart, they all become blood brothers. Friends. And then Luke Bafa is another strong internal school. It's stationed in Shanghai during the turn of the century. And the Crane School in Fujian, across the Taiwan Strait, very strong school. Of course, in Canton, we have many Hakka peoples. Their Kung Fu are a little different. But most southern schools are all internal arts. Oh. Yep. But the cultivation of the Qi and all this, using the yin and yang thing, the master hold back the knowledge so conservatively. So a lot of people turn their school, become external practice. Through the cultivation part, the Qi activation, open all your channel, allow you become healthy, and understand how to use your body. We call it about Jing Qi Shen, Pi Gen Gu. Like today, people doing Qigong, they all emphasizing on Jing Qi Shen. They are missing half of the thing. We call Pi Gen Gu. That's a whole spectrum of things.
My name's Brandt Stickley, and I'm an associate professor here in the College of Classical Chinese Medicine. I've been here for 14 years now. My perspective on the medicine is so profoundly influenced by my mentor and my lineage. And I think that's what's part of what brought me to this unique program at NUNM, which is so focused on lineage and a kind of tripod of lineage and mentorship and clinical efficacy. And maybe not a tripod, maybe it's a table that has 4 legs that includes also scholarship. So we'll bring our seat of our tripod up to that table and we'll sit together and we'll discuss, as has happened in mentorships, in lineages, at kitchen tables, at tea house tables, at desks where patients are seen. Always this communication between doctor and patient, between teacher and student, mentor and mentee, has always played out in these types of settings in the traditional context. Unique aspects that we have here, and that's a big part of my whole understanding of what makes Chinese medicine so viable now. I was studying Chinese, I was studying Mandarin at UC Berkeley, and also was able to take two classical Chinese seminars at UC Berkeley also. And it was during that period that I decided to pursue Chinese medicine. I had actually gone out to UC Berkeley primarily to study the Misty poets, the post-1978 movement. But something about those classical literature courses grabbed me and coincided with actually the experience of getting acupuncture for the first time. And that was just an incredible experience.
So I am Paul Kalnins. I'm a naturopathic physician. I also have a master's in Chinese medicine. I was a licensed acupuncturist for over 20 years, and recently I let that license lapse. But I am currently, so I taught here at NUNM as an assistant professor for about 17 years. I was both in the classroom in the Chinese medicine department. I taught the biomedicine series for acupuncturists. And then I taught naturopathic students endocrinology as well as some herbal courses and herbal pharmacology, for example. And then I was also an attending in the clinic where we did primary care therapies there. And then I worked over at HealthGot in the research department, mentoring students, conducting research trials. As of 2 years ago, I left NUNM full-time. I'm back now just teaching adjunctively, but I'm starting a 2-year fellowship at OHSU in bioinformatics and computational biomedicine starting this summer. So I'm hoping to move in that direction. Philosophically, my reason for coming to naturopathic school, so I had studied physics and mathematics and some philosophy as an undergrad. And I was thinking about grad school in physics, but at the last minute, my family, my father and my grandfather were both in medicine. My father was a surgeon, my grandfather was a medical doctor. And so I thought maybe I'd go into medicine. But at the time, I was really interested in whole systems medicine, looking at how, for example, organ networks communicate, how we can look at biology as a more complex phenomenon than just simple little parts interacting. And at that time, this was in the early 1990s, there really was no work or research around that. And so I looked for programs where I could explore that. And I stumbled across what was then called NCNM, the National College of Natural Medicine, or Naturopathic Medicine. And that aligned with my interests at the time. And I knew that I could use that to practice clinically. And then I applied and was accepted. I came to school here. And then within the first 2 years of me starting, the Chinese medicine program also began. So I was part of the first cohort to go through that. And I graduated in 1998. And then I've been in a variety of practices. I worked with a number of medical doctors and integrated clinics for several years. And then about 17 years ago or so, I started teaching at NUNM adjunctively and then went to full-time. And then now I'm moving into my other career direction.
My name is Christine Pearson, and I'm a graduate of NUNM and a current teacher in the acupuncture program here at NUNM in Portland, Oregon. I graduated in 2012, and I've been teaching in some capacity since 2016. How did I come to this medicine? I actually came to NUNM thinking that I was going to be a naturopath, and then I heard one of our teachers talk, and it shifted my handwriting from big and scrawly to very concise and tight. And that was the first time that I realized that energy mattered when people were talking. And then I came in with 2 applications, one for the ND program and one for the CCM program, and 2 checks and 2 sets of essays. And I talked to my admissions counselor, and every time she would talk about the Chinese medicine program, there was a scroll painting of a yin-yang fish, and that yin-yang fish painting, calligraphy painting, would catch the wind and start moving. And then when she would talk about the tenets of naturopathic medicine, she would point to this plaque, and it didn't move. And at the very last moment, when it was time to choose which packet to turn into her, I chose the thing that moved. And that's how I came to Chinese medicine. I actually have a science background and thought I was going to be an ND.